Hello my dear students, we will be discussing formation of a company. Now here when we talk about formation of a company, we are strictly talking about formation of a joint stock company. If you see on the very first portion where you've got the content of the chapter, it has been divided into 4 stages: promotion, incorporation, flotation or capital subscription, and commencement of business. And as this sequence has been discussed here, we will be dealing with the entire chapter in this sequence only. So first and foremost, we take up promotion. Now over here we are not talking about promotion or criteria of promotion of a student from one class to another or from one degree to another. We are talking about promotion of a company. Now what does that mean? Definitely that means about establishment, the initial functions which are done during the establishment of a company. First time when you promote a business entity, first time when you bring into an entity into existence. That's the reason why on page number 170, if you see, they've said joint stock company may be promoted by the existing sole proprietorship or partners and expanded into a joint stock company or a new company from the very beginning as formed. Now, what are the stages of promotion? How would you promote it? Discovery of the business idea. The first and foremost, you have to fix up that which business are you interested in? What is your idea all about? What will you sell or what will you transact? Detailed investigation. So for that, you have to find out about the market, probable areas, who are the stakeholders, what is the ability to create good turnovers of the business. Then you will be assembling the resources accordingly. You will be needing both human and non-human resources for it. Then financial propositions, that is, you will be arranging the money. Not only will you think about arranging the money, you will also be finding out that from where will you get the money properly, how much money will you utilize, how much will be self-financed, how much will you take loan. So all these 4 stages, when they would be done successfully, we will promote a company. Now, who promotes a company? What are they called? They are called as promoters. These are not promoters of real estate, not those who promote or build up buildings or flats. We are talking about promoters of business. So you've got the definition there given under the Companies Act 2013, and we'll be discussing that precisely and in detail in class. Along with that, next topic would be types of promoters. Now, because I told you that promoters, we are talking about business promoters. They can be professional ones, like who've learned how to promote a business. Then they could be accidental ones, accidental promoters, like by chance they've become promoters of the business. Financial promoters, those who contribute money and become the promoters. Technical promoters means that they provide the technical know-how, the technical backup. Specialized institutions, sometimes banks and specialized institutions, they promote businesses. And government, of course, for all the public sector undertakings. Now what is the role? Of course, very important. They conceive the idea, they carry out the preliminary detailed investigation, then they bring about various persons into play, they assemble the resources, they enter into preliminary contracts, and they finalize those contracts, and then finally they launch the enterprise into a proper self entity. Next week got the legal status of a promoter. Now if you see, there is a fiduciary relationship. We'll be discussing that in detail in the class, and let's see how does law recognize the status of a promoter. Like, so basically we are going to discuss about what does the promoter have to do legally. Like, he must have entire information, he must have all the arrangement for monetary resources, whatever would be the selling strategy. Then he will have to take care of the work of promoting the business with utmost care. He's personally liable because see, he is taking up all the stake, he's trying to promote the business. So if anything goes wrong, then of course law will be getting hold of the promoters only, isn't it? They are liable. If the business turns out to be failure, then they are answerable to the stakeholders. So we'll be taking up those points and details in the class. Next is incorporation of a company. Now that's the second step, as we already. Now to incorporate a company, we got to file necessary documents. Then we have pay the necessary amount of fees as required, and then we will finally obtain the certificate of incorporation. And what are the steps for that? Please mark those as points as they are written from point number 1 to 5. Approval of the name must be approved definitely, isn't it? Then we have got filling up of the documents like memorandum of association, articles of association, then various other affidavit documents are required, addresses of the correspondences, particulars of the name including surname or family name, residential address, nationality, all those details should be there, names of the members, details of the members, then all the registration fees that is required. Then finally papers will be scrutinized by the registrar for registration purposes, and in everything falls into places, then you get certificate of incorporation. Once you get that, then you will be commencing the business, and for that you need certificate of commencement, right? So certificate of commencement, basically it's a declaration by various authorities and parties who will declare that we declare the business to be open. We are finally bringing the business into execution, isn't it? So it is started to execute its purchase and sale dealings and transactions. So memorandum of association, articles of association, prospectus, statement in lieu, these are the documents that are definitely required at the stage of formation. First and foremost, which is memorandum of association. It is a basic document. As you can see, it is written in the meaning which defines the limitations and the powers of the company. So how far does the company go? What are its powers? Where can it exercise its powers? All that will be written in memorandum, right? What is its significance? Anything that you do beyond what is written in memorandum will be considered to be illegal, null and void. You would be considered to be going beyond law if you're not following by the MOA, right? It makes known to the shareholders that, okay, fine, what are their powers, what is the objective of the company, names and addresses, all the other relevant information, and that leads us to the contents of memorandum being name clause. Don't worry about the details of the thing that we'll be discussing and marking in detail in the class. As of now, you just need to know that there are 6 basic segments of a memorandum of association. These are called as clauses because this is an official document. Name clause, that will mainly deal with name and other address and establishment details. Then we've got domicile clause that will decide about that will deal with the registration place and head office of the business unit. Then objects clause, whatever the objectives of the organization are, what are the main idea, what is the target. Liability clause, that what is the liability of the members and the company. Then is the capital clause, that from where and how much the capital will be contributed. Subscription or association clause, that is who are the subscribers, who are the associate members of the company. So all that will be written in the memorandum of association. Next, we've got articles of association. Though the names are very similar, but then articles, they basically define the rights, powers and duties of the management, the mode and manner in which the business of the company to be carried. So if memorandum told the powers, define the limitations, articles of associations are actually telling you how to abide by those limitations, okay, how to carry out business. And of course, we've got the differences with memorandum and articles. We'll be discussing that point wise in the class. Next, the document is prospectus. Now, I'm sure you must have heard about prospectus earlier also. Prospectus of a school, prospectus of a college, prospectus of any organization where you're trying to enroll yourself. Now, basically, these are any documents for a company which includes the, notice, circular, advertisement, document, any sort of introductory messages, notices, paragraphs, images, all that. The entire compiled version of that is a prospectus. So basically, it does the work of inviting people, it informs the public, it provides authentic record because, those who are coming from outside, those who are stakeholders or trying to invest, they must know. Reflects the business policies, helps the investors to take investment decisions, right? And then you've got contents of prospectus. Those are clearly given in the book point wise, which we need to take. 2 types are there, shelf prospectus and red herring. We'll be taking up the meaning and distinction that I'm not explaining here because that requires a bit of a concept in detailing. Statement in lieu of prospectus is when you're not being able to file a prospectus, you file a statement in lieu of prospectus. Basically, this is a subordinate or substitute document. Function same, incorporation same under Companies Act 2013, purpose same, but it's just that the name of the document is different. Then next is minimum subscription. Now, minimum subscription is all those members, all those shares that you're trying to sell. You've been given the idea in the book only in detail that within the 120 days, if 90% of the people do not subscribe for those shares, then you have to give back everything. Then you cannot start a company. So minimum subscription is whatever amount of capital that you're trying to gather, 90% of that must be arranged in a stipulated time frame of 120 days. Otherwise, you got to return everything back to all the people who've already given the money. And why do you use that initial capital? capital to meet your first stage expenses, then to pay the underwriting brokers, agents, to create your working capital of the business, because you have to know at the very first stage business hardly has any turnover, isn't it? It doesn't have a sale value. So, and for any other expenditure, so preliminary expenses will be met, and then you would scan the prospectus. Why? Because you will need to know about the nature of the business. You want to find out what is the company heading towards, who runs the management or who constitutes the management of the business, capital structure, how was it formed, what are the shares, what is the proportion, how much property has been acquired, what is the past history of the people who have started off the company, or past history of the company itself, what are the material contracts that it has signed, or who are the business associates, which corporate world does it belong to, restrictions that it will be imposing on its members, and finally market comments, that is feedback of the people who have associated themselves with the company. So this is about the entire chapter of formation of the company, though we will be taking up in detail in the class and carry forward with our lessons, right? Thank you everyone.